So I'm finally back on YouTube. I plan to start doing 2 to 3 videos per week, especially to make up for all the time I lost. I have a lot of great things planned for this month and hopefully I'll get to all of them. I am going to start a Prompt Tuesday series where every Tuesday I will give everyone a prompt that you can use to write a fiction piece or poem or whatever you feel inspired to write. So I'm going to go ahead and start my fall book haul. These are not all the books I read throughout fall, but these are the ones that I can mostly remember and also the ones that I chose to basically talk about. And you will notice I like a variety of different books, so I have adult books, young adult, all those mixed in. So one of the books that I read was It by Stephen King. I've read it before. It was years ago, probably my freshman year of high school when I first read it, but I decided to listen to the audiobook this time. It's definitely interesting to listen to someone else read it. For it was amazing. It was just as good as I remembered it, if not better. When it comes to Stephen King, I have a tendency to compare every book of his to it because nothing compares to how good it is. God, that's so weird saying that title. But if there's any book of Stephen King's you should read, I really suggest you pick up this book. It is one of his most popular books besides The Shining, and yes, it is like a 1,400-page book, but it's worth every second. You know, sometimes when books get that long, they have a tendency to be too detailed and it just gets too repetitive and boring and you don't want to listen to it, but with it, you kind of don't want to ever put it down. You know, you don't get that feeling that it's too long. To be honest, when it finished, I didn't want it to end. I mean, it took me 2 months to listen to the audiobook because it's such a big book. And the next one is also by Stephen King. It's called Dr. Sleep. It's the sequel to The Shining. And I do suggest you pick up this book. It is better if you've read The Shining first, although I really don't think it's necessary because, to be honest, I read The Shining way back in high school, like freshman year. So it's hard for me to remember what happened, but you can read this book without having known what happened previously. Basically, all you need to know is that it took place in Colorado at the Stanley Hotel. Although in the book it's called the Overlook. But in real life, the Overlook was based on the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, in case you didn't know that. And the thing about Dr. Sleep is I was really worried because it's been years since he came out with The Shining. And when people wait that long, kind of like To Kill a Mockingbird, I know Harper Lee just came out with the sequel or whatever, sometimes you have to be a little concerned that it's been too long and the authors can't get back into the characters and the storyline. But honestly, I thought Stephen King did an amazing job. I was completely terrified. Even though it was the middle of the day in the library that I was listening to this audiobook, I actually found myself terrified. Not so much because it was scary as in like gory or there was anything particularly like scary like clowns like in It, because clowns are terrifying. I don't care what people say. You don't get so much that. It's more the concept, because the whole scene with the baseball boy, if you do read it, is what terrified me. I don't want to give away spoilers, so I won't tell you what happened, but it actually did terrify me in the middle of the day. So great job, Stephen King. And the next book I read was Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. Tongue twister there. I loved this book. It definitely didn't turn out how I expected it to. I had different expectations, you know. I thought it was gonna be pretty corny, to be honest, and I kept being surprised, which was a good thing. I highly suggest you read it. They are gonna be making a movie, and I believe it comes out next year for it, so. I also read Magnus Chase and the Sword of Summer. I have not actually read the Percy Jackson series. I just finished actually Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief. But, so this is my first time reading any young adult series by Rick Riordan. I have read his adult works, which really aren't that great, but I was in love with Magnus Chase. I didn't like the guy doing the audiobook, but I still didn't want to stop listening because I loved the story. And I also felt like I could be friends with Magnus Chase because he is so sassy. I love it. And that's the way I am. and I think we'd get along very well. So that was awesome, and it definitely surprised me in the beginning. Well, I don't want to give away spoilers, so I won't say what happened, but I definitely thought that the beginning was a joke. I kept waiting like, okay, where's the punchline? I couldn't believe that that story actually happened the way that it did, but it was awesome. And I highly suggest you read that one. I just finished Percy Jackson, and I actually preferred Magnus Chase over Percy Jackson. Don't shoot me, anyone, but I thought it was so good. Alright, and then the last few books I read the Penelopiad, or however you say that, by Margaret Atwood. I had to read it for a class, but I was in love with it. It's basically taking the myth of Penelope and Odysseus. Instead of writing it from Odysseus' point of view or talking about Odysseus, she writes it in Penelope's point of view. So it's basically taking Homer's Odyssey and rearranging it, and I thought the book was hilarious. And I honestly would have enjoyed reading that more than the Odyssey in high school, but you know, you don't get to choose. So I mean, it's so blunt and straightforward, and she's very sassy again, which, like I said, I love in my characters because I am a very sassy person, so I relate better to characters like that, and plus they just are funnier and it adds a comedic effect. The last one I read was Mortal Instruments, The City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. It's the 5th book in the series. It's taken me a few years to read this series. I started it a few years ago, read the first couple of them, was in love with them, and then it's just I got distracted by other things, so I stopped reading the series and then went back to it. So I'm finally trying to finish up the series because I really enjoy it. The movie wasn't that great, but although I do love the actors and actresses that was in it, and I am beyond excited for this new TV series. In case you didn't know, the Mortal Instruments are being turned into a show called The Shadowhunters, which I did a trailer reaction video for. The book was as good, of course, as all the others. It is frustrating because it's one of those where the girl and the guy just never seem to get together, which gets to be really frustrating, especially after 5 books. But I still can't stop reading them. I just have to read it until they do get together. Maybe that's why I keep reading it. Even though it's frustrating, I just have to see it happen. So yes, it is frustrating, but it's definitely worth the read. So I suggest you check out all of the books that I mentioned here. They're all awesome. So that's it for my book haul for the fall. And I will probably be doing monthly book hauls if I can keep up. But it just depends. If not, then I will be doing seasonal. But anyway, just keep looking out for all my videos. Like I said, I'm back online now, so I will see you next time. Bye!